Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another Silhouette Sunday video. In today's video, I'm going to be making a personalized notebook, and I'm going to be using some small notebooks that I found in the art section at Michael's. These notebooks are generally with the sketchbook type products with the fine art supplies. So having said that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. The first thing I'm going to do is draw some templates to use as guidelines on my digital cutting mat. And I know what I want the notebook to say and who it's going to belong to in terms of the personalization, but I don't know how big the words need to be for the quote. So to help me figure that out, I'm going to go ahead and draw some templates on my cutting mat. So first things first, I'm going to grab the rectangle tool and draw a rectangle on my mat, and then select it and resize it to specific dimensions. And the actual size of the notebook is 6 by 8. So I'm going to go ahead and type those numbers in the box and click apply. And for the inside quote, I'm thinking that it should roughly be 4 by 4.5 inches wide. So I'm going to go ahead and draw one more rectangle here and specify those dimensions as well. So I've drawn the rectangle and I'm going to specify, so that I know that it's consistent between notebooks, to 4 by 4.5 inches. Now, thinking about my specific design, I'm thinking maybe I should swap this around. So I'm going to go ahead and make this 4.5 inches wide by 4 inches high, because I think my quote will fit a little better in something that's a little wider in terms of a template. So now that I have that all set, I can start working on my words and how big they're going to be. For the font, I'm going to be using a duo font called Mudisa or Mudhisa. I will link to it in the description box down below, and it is actually a duo font, which means that it comes with a sans version of the font and a cursive version of the font, with a lot of swirls and bells and whistles that can be found if you dig around. So for the first part of this personalization, I'm going to use Mudisa Sans, and I'm going to go ahead and type the first word and the last word, which is inclusion and innovation. And I will separate these later to fit in this design, but for now I'm just going to go ahead and leave them here together. And then for the second part, I'm going to go ahead and change this font to Mudisa Sans, or excuse me, Mudisa Bold, which is the cursive version of that font. So I'm going to go ahead and type out the middle word, which is going to be inspires. And I'm going to highlight it and change the font here in this menu to the bold version of this font. Now, to make this a little easier to work with, I'm going to make this a bit bigger so we can see what we're doing here. So here you can see the word actually connects pretty well, but I do want to use a different version of this I and a different version of this S. So I'm going to go ahead and double click so I can get the cursor back and highlight this I. And then on the right hand side, I'm going to go into the text style panel and go into the glyph menu and scroll through to pick a different version of the I and the S. And this font does have different letters with tails going to the right and to the left. So I'm going to go ahead and change this I. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the S. I'm going to highlight it and then find the one with the S with the tail to the right. So all in all, this looks pretty good. This font connects together pretty well, so I don't need to move any of the individual letters. So what I'm going to do is click it and then right click and weld the whole thing together. And you can see now I have 3 boxes. The actual word inspires, and then my eyes are separated here. So what I'm going to do is right click it one more time and then click group so that everything just stays together. So when I click and drag it, it drags all as one. And I'm going to scale this down to fit inside this box. Now, what I'm really concerned with is the word inspires fitting in this box, not necessarily the tails. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim these tails so that they're a little shorter. They don't hit the edge of the notebook. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and change the size just a little bit more. And I'm going to add these two words. Now, like I mentioned before, these can be scaled together or separate in terms of size. I think they're actually going to be just made a little bit bigger for this project. So I'm going to go ahead and make it just a tad smaller because I want them to be the same size. And then I'm going to go ahead, right click, and then go to ungroup. So now each of these letters now can be moved on their own, but I don't want to do that. I just want the words to be moved on their own. So I'm going to go ahead and click away so that all those letters aren't selected, and then draw a line through to select each one of these, right click, and then group these letters together, and do the same thing with these letters up here. Draw a line, and then right click, and then group them together so that I can work with each word individually. So I'm thinking in terms of size, these could probably, this one could be the same, but this probably needs to shrink down. So I'm going to shrink that down a little bit and shrink this one down a little bit. Now, if you wanted them to be exactly the same size, you could redo them together, but it doesn't matter that much to me. So I'm going to move these where I want them to appear, because this is actually going to be heat transfer vinyl. So however it cuts is however it's going to be. I can't do anything to adjust it afterwards. And I've decided that I'm actually going to have this overlap slightly right here. So I'm going to zoom in so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm actually going to have to weld these two pieces together. So I'm going to select the word inspires and this word innovation, right click, and then I'm going to go ahead and weld them together so that this S that swirls through these two letters doesn't cut through each other. Now, you could layer if you were using different colors of heat transfer vinyl, or you could opt to cut them separate and then layer them on top, but I'm just going to cut it out so that it is one piece through here. Now, my tails actually do fit within my design, but they are really close to what would be the edge of the notebook. So I'm going to go ahead and take my knife tool, and right now I have it set to solid and a straight blade and auto apply. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut these so that they're a little bit shorter. And once I have those two ends cut where I like them, I can just click to select it and then hit delete on my keyboard to get rid of them. So all in all, that looks pretty good. The next thing I'm going to do is type out my personalization that's going to be at the bottom of the notebook. And I'm going to use the same exact font that I used right here. So now I've gone ahead and I've sized out my name down here. So this means that I can go in now and delete all of the extra pieces because I only need to cut out these components. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a box around all of this, right click, and then group it together and move this up. And then I'm going to move my name up as well. Now, this will be separate from this design, but for the sake of saving a little bit of HTV, I'm going to move this so that it's next to this other design here. So I'll just put it up here to save a little bit of space. Now, depending on the material you are using for your project, you may have to mirror. And I actually do need to mirror my design before I cut it out. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of it, go to the replicate window, and I'm just going to mirror it to the right. And this part can be deleted or moved out of the way. And this will be the actual portion that I cut out on my HTV. So I'm going to go ahead and send this to the silhouette to cut out. Here I have my two pieces cut out, and they just need to be weeded before I can apply them to the front of my notebook. Once I get the design started in terms of peeling, I can pull it with my hand, and then I just used my silhouette pick to pull out the little pieces in the middle of each letter. I've now set up my Cricut Easy Press and my notebook on top of my heat pad, and I'm ready to start working on transferring the design to the front of the book. For faux leather, it's actually recommended that you preheat the material first. So I've just placed down the towel in the Easy Press for about 15 seconds to preheat the surface. Once the surface is warmed, I go ahead and place the design down where I want it, put the towel back down, and then use the press to transfer the design. And it takes about 30 to 45 seconds to get the design transferred off of the backer sheet. Here you can see that the notebook is almost finished. The plastic backer sheet is actually still on top because it's recommended that you cool peel the backer sheet off of the heat transfer vinyl. So once the notebook is completely cold, I went ahead and I removed that piece of plastic. So here you can see the final product. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.